Tonight, you will probably make something happen with almost no effort. You will press a button, a stove will light, a screen will glow, a fan will spin, a machine will start moving because your finger touched plastic for less than a second. You won't think twice about it. But for most of human history, motion was not automatic. Heat was not instant. Fire was not waiting inside a wall. And if your ancestors wanted warmth, light, cooked food, or protection in the darkness, they often had to create it with their own hands. Today, spinning something feels simple. A wheel spins, a motor spins, a blender spins, a drill spins. But for ancient humans, controlled spinning was one of the strangest and most powerful ideas ever discovered. Because long before engines, long before factories, long before electricity, a human looked at a stick, a cord, and a curved piece of wood and realized that the back and forth motion of the arm could become rapid rotation. That simple movement is what we can call the bow spin, a bow wrapped around a shaft with a hand pressing down. A stick turning fast enough to grind, drill, heat smoke, and sometimes create an ember. It looks primitive now, almost childish, just wood, string, pressure, and patience. But in the ancient world, this was not just a trick, it was a machine, one of the earliest ways humans learned to turn muscle into controlled power. And that power changed the way people made fire, shaped objects, decorated bodies, worked materials, and gathered around light. Before cities, before writing, before metal engines, before the modern world learned to hide power inside wires and batteries, humans had to feel power directly in the body. You pulled, the bow moved, the spindle spun, the fireboard smoked, and in that smoke was a question much bigger than the tool itself. How did a creature with no claws, no thick fur, no natural flame, and no built-in weapon against the dark learn to command heat, motion, and transformation? The answer changes how we understand technology, because technology did not begin as screens. It began as rhythm. It began as friction. It began with the human body learning that repeated movement could change the world. Imagine an ancient night, no streetlights, no windows glowing in the distance. No buildings blocking the wind, just open land, dark trees, cold air, and sounds moving beyond the firelight. For a modern person, darkness is usually an inconvenience. You turn on a lamp, you unlock your phone, you wait for the power to come back. But for ancient humans, darkness was a border. Outside the light, the world became uncertain. A shape could be a branch, or it could be an animal. A sound could be the wind, or it could be something watching. The human eye is not built like the eye of a night predator. Your ancestors were vulnerable in the dark. They were not the fastest animals. They were not the strongest animals. Their teeth could not tear like a big cat's. Their hands were clever, but soft. So fire became more than warmth. Fire became distance. It pushed danger away. It made food safer. It made cold nights survivable. It turned a group of frightened bodies into a circle. And in that circle, humans could rest. But here's what's fascinating. Using fire and making fire are not the same thing. At first, early humans may have taken fire from nature, from a lightning strike, a burning tree, or a dry grassland after a storm. They could carry embers, they could protect coals, they could feed a flame carefully, as if keeping a living thing alive. But if the fire died, the group had a problem, a serious problem, because without fire, the night changed again. Food became harder to process, cold became harder to survive. Predators came closer, and the group had to wait for nature to give the flame back. That is why deliberate fire-making was such an important step. It meant humans were no longer only borrowing fire from the sky. They were learning to produce it. The bowspin belongs to this larger story. A bow drill used for fire is simple in design, but difficult in practice. There is a spindle, usually a straight wooden shaft. There is a fireboard with a small notch and a hole. There is a cord wrapped around the spindle. There is a curved bow that moves back and forth. There is a handhold pressing from above, and there is a human body controlling everything. One hand moves the bow, one hand holds pressure. The arm must keep rhythm, the wrist must keep balance. The body must lean with just enough force, too slow and nothing happens, too loose and the cord slips, too much pressure and the spindle stops, too little pressure and there is no heat. The movement looks rough, but it requires intelligence. It is not just strength. It is timing. It is patience. It is the understanding that invisible heat can be built through repeated contact. Wood against wood, friction against time, pressure against rhythm. At first, there is only dust. Then the dust darkens. Then a thin line of smoke appears. Then, if everything is right, the powder begins to glow. Not a flame yet, just a tiny ember, a fragile red point that can disappear with one careless breath. That ember must be moved into dry grass, bark fibers, or prepared tinder. Then it must be fed air, slowly, carefully, until it becomes flame. And this is where the bow spin becomes more than a tool, because it teaches a strange lesson. The most powerful things do not always arrive suddenly. Sometimes they are built through repetition. A small motion becomes heat. Heat becomes smoke. Smoke becomes ember. Ember becomes fire. Fire becomes safety. Safety becomes society. But that was only the beginning. The bow spin was also part of a deeper human discovery: rotation. Most animals push, pull, bite, dig, and strike. Humans do those things too. But humans also learned how to create motion that repeats in a controlled circle. That idea seems ordinary now, because the modern world is full of spinning things: wheels, gears, fans, drills, turbines, engines, hard drives, and washing machines. But in ancient life, controlled rotation was not obvious. Nothing in the human body naturally spins like a wheel. Your shoulder rotates, but not endlessly. Your wrist turns, but only so far. The bow drill solved that problem. The arm moved forward and backward. The cord translated that movement into rapid spinning. It turned the body into a motor. And this is where it gets strange. The bow spin did not only help humans make fire, it helped humans make holes. And holes changed culture. A hole in wood could make a tool. A hole in bone could make a needle, a pendant, or a musical instrument. A hole in stone could make a bead, and a bead was never just a bead. It could signal identity. It could show belonging. It could mark status. It could say, I am part of this group. It could say, I come from this place. It could say, I know how to make something difficult. In archaeology, some of the clearest evidence for ancient drilling comes not from fire tools, because wood usually rots away, but from the objects drilling left behind: stone beads, drill marks, workshops, and discarded fragments. At Mehrgarh, in present-day Pakistan, archaeologists Maurizio Tosi and Massimo Vidale studied evidence of lapis lazuli working from the first half of the 4th millennium BCE. Lapis lazuli is not an ordinary stone. It is deep blue, rare, difficult to shape, and in many ancient societies it became a material of beauty, exchange, and prestige. To turn hard stone into small objects, people needed more than decoration. They needed technique. They needed abrasion. They needed drilling. They needed the ability to repeat controlled motion again and again. Other studies of ancient Near Eastern tools describe bow drills as known from ethnographic observation and Egyptian depictions. Archaeologist David Elan noted that bow drills were probably used for fire making more than anything else, but they were also important in carpentry, lapidary work, and bead making. That means the same basic principle could move across human life: fire, craft, body decoration, tools, trade, and identity. A simple spinning shaft could help turn raw material into culture. And here's the part most people never think about. A technology does not only solve a practical problem, it changes what a group can imagine. Before a hole can be drilled through stone, someone has to believe the stone can be changed. Before fire can be made from friction, someone has to believe heat can be hidden inside movement. Before a bow drill can exist, someone has to understand that a flexible cord, a straight shaft, and a curved stick can work together as one system. That is not just survival, that is abstract thinking. It is the mind seeing relationships between things: the bow, the cord, the spindle, the pressure, the board, the dust, and the ember. Each part is weak alone. Together, they become powerful. That is a very human pattern. Many of the things humans build are not powerful because one part is strong. They are powerful because separate parts cooperate. A group is like that. A language is like that. A ritual is like that. A machine is like that. Ancient technology often worked the same way ancient society worked, not through one perfect piece, but through many small pieces held together by rhythm. But the most important part is what happened next. Once humans could create fire more reliably, fire became a center of life. It was not just a tool used for heat. It became a place. People gathered around it. They cooked near it. They worked near it. They repaired tools near it. They watched children near it. They told stories near it. And those stories may have shaped human social life in ways we still feel today. In 2014, anthropologist Polly Wiesner studied firelight conversations among the Zhuhonzi people of the Kalahari. What she found was surprising. Daytime conversations were often practical. They focused on work, resources, complaints, and immediate social concerns. But nighttime conversations around fire were different. They were more likely to involve stories, memories, imagined worlds, emotions, and connections beyond the present moment. Firelight changed the social atmosphere. It made the group sit together after the day's survival work was done. It created a soft boundary between the dangerous darkness outside and the shared human world inside. This does not mean every ancient campfire was peaceful. Ancient humans still argued, they competed, they feared, they lost people, they made mistakes. But fire created a space where the group could do something rare. They could stop moving, they could look at faces, they could listen, they could remember, they could explain the world to each other. And maybe this is one reason fire became so deeply emotional for humans. Even today, a flame does something strange to your attention. You can stare at it longer than you expect. It moves, but not like a machine. It feels alive, but not like an animal. It gives light, but it also creates shadow. It makes a circle feel separate from the rest of the world. A campfire, a candle, a fireplace, even a small flame on a birthday cake can still pull people into silence. We think we are modern, but your nervous system still understands the ancient meaning of warm light in darkness, safety, gathering, memory, presence. And this is where the bow spin becomes more than an ancient technique, because the bow spin represents a moment when humans learned to produce the conditions for connection, not just wait for them. A group that could make fire could choose when to gather. A person who could start an ember could protect others. Someone skilled with the bow drill may have carried knowledge that mattered to the whole group. That knowledge had to be taught. And teaching is one of the deepest human behaviors. No baby is born knowing how to make fire with a bow drill. No child naturally understands the right wood, the right pressure, the right tinder, the right rhythm. Someone had to show them again and again, a hand over a hand. A correction, a warning, a demonstration, a failed attempt, a second attempt, a small ember at last. Ancient technology survived because human attention moved from one person to another. This is culture. Not culture as museums and books, but culture as a child watching an adult's hands. Culture as a group remembering which wood works after rain. Culture as a story about the person who once kept the fire alive during a terrible night. Culture as technique passed through bodies. And that may be one of the most overlooked things about modern life. Today, technology still surrounds you, but your body touches less of the process. You press a button and the result appears. You do not see the friction. You do not smell the smoke. You do not feel the resistance in your shoulder. You do not fail 10 times before the flame arrives. Modern tools are powerful because they remove difficulty. But sometimes by removing difficulty, they also remove relationship. Relationship with material. Relationship with patience. Relationship with the people who taught the skill. Relationship with the moment when effort becomes transformation. We think convenience only gives us something: time, speed, comfort, control. And it does. Modern life has saved lives. Electricity, heating, medicine, and machines have protected humans from dangers our ancestors faced every day. No one should romanticize hunger, cold, injury, or fear. Ancient life was not a fantasy. It was hard, it was uncertain, and many people did not survive it. But the strange thing is that ancient difficulty also created certain kinds of attention that modern life often weakens. When making fire is difficult, fire feels valuable. When drilling a bead takes hours, the bead carries meaning. When a tool requires rhythm, the body remembers it. When knowledge must be taught face to face, the teacher matters. When the group gathers around one flame, presence becomes unavoidable. Today, this feels different. You can sit in a lit room and still feel alone. You can be surrounded by machines and still feel disconnected. You can have instant heat, instant food, instant entertainment, and still feel restless. That restlessness may seem like a modern problem, but it may be connected to something much older. Your brain was shaped in a world where effort and meaning were often tied together, a world where survival depended on paying attention, a world where tools were not hidden behind smooth surfaces, a world where the hand, the material, the group, and the result were connected. Now we live in a world where results arrive quickly, but often without the experience that once gave them weight. You do not need to know how fire works to use a stove. You do not need to know how a motor works to use a drill. You do not need to know how food was grown to eat dinner. You do not need to know who made an object to own it. The modern world gives us power without intimacy, and maybe that is why many people feel pulled toward old skills: camping, woodworking, cooking from scratch, gardening, pottery, archery, fishing, and fire making. Not because these things are necessary for most people now, but because they return the body to a slower kind of intelligence, a kind of intelligence your ancestors knew well, the intelligence of contact, hands on material, eyes on small changes, body learning through failure, mind slowing down enough to notice cause and effect. The bowspin is a perfect symbol of that world. It is not loud, it is not fast at first, It does not look impressive in the way modern machines look impressive, but it contains a whole philosophy. Move with rhythm, apply pressure, stay patient, let small changes build, respect the material, protect the ember, share the flame, and here's the part that makes it emotional. For thousands of generations, humans survived, not because they were separate from nature, but because they learned how to negotiate with it. They could not command the world instantly. They had to listen to it. Dry wood or wet wood, soft fiber or poor tinder, too much wind or not enough air. The bow spin worked only when the human body cooperated with the material world. It was not domination, it was partnership, and maybe that is what modern life has made harder to feel. We have more control than ever, but we often feel less connected to the things we control. We have more light than ever, but many people have lost the shared circle that light once created. We have more heat than ever, but less memory of the hands that once fought to create it. Long ago, a person crouched in the dirt with a bow, a cord, a spindle, and a board. Around them, others may have waited. Children may have watched. The air may have been cold. The dark may have been close. The first attempts may have failed. Then smoke appeared. Then the dust glowed. Then a breath turned the ember into flame. And for a moment, the group had changed the night. Not with electricity, not with metal engines, not with a switch, but with rhythm, patience, and shared knowledge. Today, you live in a world built on spinning things you never see. Motors spin inside machines. Fans spin behind plastic covers. Turbines spin far away to make electricity. Hard drives, wheels, pumps, and drills keep the modern world moving. But beneath all of that is an ancient idea. A human hand once learned that motion could become power. Power could become heat. Heat could become fire. And fire could become a circle where people survived together. For thousands of generations, humans lived close to the effort behind warmth. Today, we replaced that effort with buttons. And most of us never realized that when the ancient bow stopped spinning, something inside the human story became quieter.